Zambia being party to global entities such as the United Nations and a signatory to various agreements and treaties, it assents to the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights that includes right to life, right to equality, right to peaceful assembly and association, right to education, among others. Zambia's record of human rights has been a source of concern to many stakeholders locally and internationally over the years. The concerns are mainly raised after observing how some basic human rights of individuals, such as the right to opinion and assembly, are abused. It is for this reason that the Southern African Center for the Constructive Resolution of Dispute, SACCORD, has embarked on a project that will see human rights defenders being defended in the country. SACCORD received support from the Open Society Initiative for Southern Africa, or CISA, to carry out a project titled Strengthening Zambia Human Rights Defenders Network and Universal Periodic Review 2017. Under this project, SACCORD being the secretariat, the Zambia Human Rights Defenders Network was set up and successfully launched in Lusaka on 19th November 2018. The launch was attended by a number of stakeholders that included the state and civil society organizations, as well as individual human rights activists and the media. SACCORD Executive Director Boniface Chembe welcomed the delegates and gave the objective of setting up the project.
It had two objectives. One, to create a Zambia Human Rights Defenders Network, and two, to support the Zambia Universal Periodic Review to the United Nations Human Rights Council. Guest of honor, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, much was done to fulfill the second objective. The network seeks to monitor human rights violations and make interventions aimed at minimizing violation of human rights. And there is no doubt that the network will continue to interact with several other actors that have an interest in promoting and protecting human rights. Among them is the Law Association of Zambia, that have already started playing a very key role in matters pertaining to human rights defenders, but also the Zambia Law Development Commission, that also continues to ensure that appropriate pieces of legislation are put in place to continue promoting human rights.
Mr. Chembe further outlined how the body was arrived at and the composition of this critical institution.
Several strategy planning and formulation meetings were held that brought a combination of different stakeholders. Arising out of these meetings, several agreements were made, such as that each province should have a provincial chapter. And we are happy that each provincial chapter for each province representing the Republic of Zambia is present here today. Secondly, that the network be a loose network of all individuals and organizations who subscribe to the ideals of human rights defenders. And we are happy that we do have a composition of such membership, and that a steering committee should be put in place. And we are happy that that steering committee is in place. And during the second planning and strategy meeting that was held, the stakeholders appointed a 5-member national steering committee consisting of the Civil Society for Poverty Reduction, CSPR, Transparency International Zambia, TIZ, the Zambia Council for Social Development, ZCSD, the Young African Leaders Initiative, YALI, and the Southern African Center for the Constructive Resolution of Disputes, SACCORD, as the Secretariat. We are pleased that as we launch the network today, it has a presence throughout the country through provincial chapters and the National Steering Committee.
He then wrapped up, linking the organization to other like-minded partners in the crusade of upholding human rights in the country.
The network will accommodate institutions and individuals who subscribe to having a good and better human rights environment. This network, after the launch, will further seek to belong to like-minded networks, such as the recently launched Southern African Human Rights Defenders Network, the Continental Human Rights Defenders Network, and the Global Human Rights Defenders Network.
And renowned Zambian author, lecturer, policy analyst and researcher Chris Zumani Zimba, representing Charisma Democracy University, had a word on human rights in Zambia.
That exercise, as I say, as Mr. Chebe noted, was supported by OSISA. So the exercise was done within 2 months, and by the end of 2017, the final report was launched here at Cresta Gofio by SACCORD. And some of the key findings were that Zambia has got more than 138 defined and clearly defined human rights civil society organizations out of more than 1,000 civil society organizations. Number two, we also noted from the study that Zambia had a poverty of human rights civil society organizations in rural areas, and was rich in terms of human rights civil society organizations, mainly in Lusaka. And the third point, of course, we noted from the study was that we did not have an establishment of this nature, a network that coordinated these human rights organizations in form of human rights defense network. Also, the last one is that there was weak collaboration between the human rights civil society organizations with government institutions such as Human Rights Commission, the Zambia Law Development Agency, other institutions such as the Zambia Police. So in as much as we talked about a bigger number of civil society organizations working in human rights, their collaboration and partnership with key government institutions working on human rights was very weak.
Cletus Shindano sits on the steering committee of the Zambia Human Rights Defenders Network on behalf of the Civil Society for Poverty Reduction.
Everyone, I believe, in one way or the other, is aiming at protecting one's rights, be it political, civil, social, economic, cultural. Because what you want to see is that people, at the end of the day, have a better life, even when it comes to meeting their basic needs. Those of us that work in poverty want to ensure that citizens are not infringed upon. They are able to have a meal and so on. So this is a very critical network for us.
Renowned music artist Chama Fumba, popularly known as Pilato, shared a poem which had a bearing on his musical career, with a specific focus on speaking out his mind about happenings in society.
Ninekemba life yanji lwimbo nombalelo ninjisanga mulimbo shishiwe nga nalaya ku studio polo ku chifungo. Or this may be my last single. Okupange nyimbo nomba ni danger. I think twice nga namona berinja. One mic, one song, one geotem. Ndakumbo kulanda pa magero na mawiski. Bantu kulanda pa nsala nomba ni riski. But munsala na basuma wanse makonga. Ninekemba. Na papata, don't take away my voice. Ngamwansende shwidandi, you're taking away my life. Don't say something. Ngamwansensa nishmwanda sanama knife.
And Adam Shapiro, the head of campaigns and visibility at Frontline Defenders in Ireland, gives his organization's reasons why they are supporting Zambia's setup of Human Rights Defenders Network.
As I started documenting the stories and the cases which appear in the report that's around the room, I started to get more and more of a clearer picture in my head of what was happening in this country and why it was really important to start to try to intervene in some way, try to help in some way.
He also touched on the reason why Zambia needs this network.
Well, when I started reading about Zambia and started following the cases here, and by last year when Laura and Pilato and others were detained, it clicked in my head that I was starting to see some of these kind of warning signs in real time as they were happening before there was a crisis, and was actually in a position where I could try to start doing something about it. I think the timing of this announcement today of the launch of the network couldn't come at a better time for a couple of reasons. One, the situation is getting worse, and I think that everybody here has a story probably to testify to that. Second, in the region, last week was launched the Southern African Human Rights Defenders Network, and so as a region, things are becoming elevated in terms of attention, awareness, and soon capacity building and training, and Zambia needs to be part of that. It needs to be integrated into the regional dynamic as well, and so the launching of this network comes at a perfect time for that. But I would also say that it's good timing because I think what's coming up for this country in the next year or two can be transformative in many different ways, in many different directions. But with the creation of this network, the establishment and the launch of this network, I think you are taking incredibly bold, brave, courageous, and important steps to make sure that you have a say and a voice and provide guidance for how those directions what direction that can go in.
Adam further poured out his concerns.
As part of my research for this report, I did engage with the National Human Rights Commission, and the commissioner I spoke to, when I asked her a question, in all of the documentation I had read from the Human Rights Commission, I didn't see the term human rights defender mentioned anywhere. Not in the strategy paper, not in the annual report, and not on their website. And I thought this was strange. Most human rights commissions that exist, national human rights commissions, do by now start to recognize human rights defender as a role, as a category of people in the society. The answer I received was an answer you would have expected to have received in 1998 at the time of the Human Rights Defenders, the Declaration on Human Rights Defenders from the UN. The answer was that the Commission protects the rights of all Zambians. And any Zambian can be a human rights defender. So therefore, the Commission protects the rights of human rights defenders. In a way, this is a beautiful answer, of course, because being a human rights defender just requires that you stand up, speak out, do something to defend the rights of anybody else. And it can be anybody. You don't have to have a PhD. You don't have to have a law degree. You don't have to work for an organization. Anybody can take this step. And anybody who does take that step, in the moment, should be recognized, supported, and protected.
Pilato later came back to share with the gathering what he has gone through at the hands of those in authority and those that feel almighty in society. The social and economic commentator who once ran away from his country in fear for his life at the hands of well-known political persons for a period of over 5 months, said Article 19 of the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights was abused in his life. Article 19 speaks to one having the right to freedom of opinion and expression, which includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media regardless of frontiers.
One, standing up for my own rights to speak, my own rights to express myself. One meant that I had to endanger not just my life, I had to endanger the life of my kids, the life of my wife, the life of my young brothers, who one of them was actually beaten by the intercity cadres. So all that was because I did not say what they wanted me to say. I was in the bush for something close to a month until the day I managed to leave the country. I was away from home and from my family for something close to 6 months.
Pilato then explains why he has chosen to do music that speaks plain truth on matters obtaining in the life of an ordinary Zambian citizen.
Today, when a lot of my friends are going to hotels, are going to banks, they are going to different nice places, I'm going to court. It's not a good thing for a young man, eh? But as long as I'm not going to court because I'm a criminal, I would still want to go back to court if that's a price for me to do that which I believe is right. I would rather go to court because I spoke against the abuse of resources that in turn disadvantages the people that are supposed to be beneficiaries. I'll give an example. Those of you that are educated will know that if you do not provide medication or drugs to the people that are sick in hospital, that's a violation of human rights. So why should we wait for people to go to UTH and die because there's no medication, and then we come and say we are defending human rights? Whose human rights are we defending? Are we just defending the human rights of Pilato? What about those that are dying because there is no medication in UTH? Why don't we step up and say, if this man stole this money, which could have been used to buy medication, drugs, equipment in our hospitals, we could have saved a life. We have so many young people that do not go to school in our villages, in our rural areas, because the schools are far away from where they live. Teachers that are trained are the ones that go to work in these spots. And not because that we are living in a very poor country, but because some money that was supposed to be used in those areas have been stolen, have been abused, misused. For me, as long as I have the power to express myself, I would rather draw attention to those things. So then we allow those that are less privileged an opportunity to escape their poverty. Today I ask myself, if I was given another chance to be Pilato, would I do this music that I do? Would I choose this path? I think that's not even a difficult question. I would still want to do this life again. I would want to live this life again.
It was now time for the chief guest, the Law Association of Zambia President, Eddie Mwetwa, to give his speech.
As the Law Association of Zambia, we do recognize the role expected of every legal practitioner, every member of the Law Association of Zambia, that is individually and collectively in the defense of human rights and consequentially the defense of human rights activists or defenders. In the attainment of human rights or human rights culture in our nation or in any nation, a culture in which human rights are respected and enjoyed by all, there is definitely a need for networks such as the Zambia Human Rights Defenders Network. I'm sure the launch of this network is music to the ears of our human rights defenders like Pilato, who we've just listened to this evening. And permit me also to use this opportunity to highlight the training program that LAS is doing in relation to the defense of human rights defenders. This training project has been going on the past 3 months and is earmarked to go on for another 3 months up to February 2019. It is a project that was birthed out of the recognition by the Law Association of Zambia of its mandate, which I alluded to earlier, and also the emergence of a culture of silence in our nation, where human rights defenders are seen to be lone soldiers without anybody coming to their aid in times of need.
Mr. Mwetwa then launched the Zambia Human Rights Defenders Network with these words.
I believe that the birth of the Zambia Human Rights Defenders Network could not have come at a much better time. More and more often we see violations of human rights in our nation, but very few human rights defenders to reckon with. We also have human rights defenders who get little or no recognition for the work that they do. And it is my hope that the Zambia Human Rights Defenders Network will bring their work to the fore. In this collaboration or network, no one should feel left out. Every actor that has something to offer must be considered when making any major decisions or taking any significant action. As the Law Association of Zambia, we stand ready to lend our support to the Zambia Human Rights Defenders Network and wish the network the best of success in its noble ideals of bringing about a Zambia in which human rights are truly respected, promoted, and cherished. Permit me to wish the Zambia Human Rights Defenders the best of success as it embarks on its work. And at this juncture, it is my singular honor and privilege to officially declare the Zambia Human Rights Defenders Network launched.